Hi everyone, and welcome to Board Games and Bourbon. I'm Glenn Flaherty, and today we're going to be talking about Affliction Salem 1692 with its creator, and he's going to give us a lowdown on the company, the game, and the basic ideas about how it works. Wonderful to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, wonderful. So please introduce yourself and tell me about your company and all that wonderful stuff.
So my name is Dan, and the last name is unpronounceable.
Okay.
So Hunzik works.
Okay.
DPH Games has been around since 2013. And I was keeping it brief, so.
Okay. So we have Affliction. What I have seen this game, I've seen it a lot, and I always found it a very captivating cover, especially since you quote Exodus. Although I would have no idea if that's an actual quote.
It is an actual quote from the Bible, and it is the quote that triggered the witch trials in Europe that preceded what happened in Salem.
I see. Okay.
So it was the justification for why it was okay to kill a witch.
Okay, so I also have the camera looking down here, and what is our purpose, our premise? How many players? How long does it take? Tell us about it.
Sure. So it's a 2 to 4 player game, and it plays in 50 minutes to an hour, depending on the players and their analysis and paralysis thinking. So,
and by the way, what's the difference between the white and the black edition?
Yeah, very funny. Okay. So earlier I was talking about how when we stack these up, sometimes you see the black side and sometimes you see the white side, and so I'll just tell people that the black edition is much better, and then they realize after they buy it that I'm an idiot. So some realize that before they buy it.
Well,
but, either way,
it doesn't take long.
No, it sure doesn't. I'm glad you got me pegged. The premise is that it's a historically accurate game about the Salem witch trials. So there's a number of games about Salem, but they typically have witches in them. And in fact, when I started talking about that I was going to do that, people would scoff and look at me like, why would you make a game about Salem that doesn't have witches in it? So the result, though, is that this is a lot of people have seen it around. We're not a big company, so it's interesting how many views this gets, and there's curiosity about it. And it seems to it came out about 2 years ago, but it seems to be like an evergreen game, and that the sales continue. Whereas most stuff now, especially with so many things coming out, it's 3 months and they're gone.
Oh, 100%.
And so
I can't tell you how many games I review that actually are great games, and then not talked about anymore.
Right. And in fact, this one showed up right before, I think it was Origins on. Tom Vassell does an hour-long spot, and on there, Graham Anderson has a spot called "If You Like This, You Might Like That."
Okay.
And he did an exception to that show. And he said, "I'm not doing that today. What I want to talk about is 3 games that are not in the top 100 and might not even be in the top 1,000 that you should look at." And the first game was Affliction.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, wow, he's still
great to get a shout out,
because he's a tough reviewer, and he loves his Euro games.
If you guys like Animal Sacrifice, you might also like Affliction.
Yeah. Well, what was cool is he wasn't doing that. He just took an exception to do that and say, you really need to check this game out.
That's
so it was
awesome.
Very cool.
Okay, so not to cut us off, sorry about that. I see two things. These are, you buy these separately,
the mats are separate. However, we do have the maps as a PDF on our website that you could download and print out on some other material, or
very cool.
Even order them yourself. Because we're a small company, we can't order the volume to wholesale these.
I hear that.
And we do sell them on our website, but you can certainly print out the map, and you don't need to have the mat to play it.
It's just a nice little perk.
Yeah, organizes everything.
How do we play it?
Sure. So it's, as I mentioned before, a 2 to 4 player game. We have it set up as a 2-player here to show you. Each player will play a faction from the town or the village of Salem, and there's a historical reason for that. And there will be a major family of Salem that you will either target or be trying to protect. And so the people you're protecting, you're bringing into your circle, and when you bring them into your circle, you gain their abilities. So this game is a worker placement, engine building, but there's also engine disruption.
Of your opponent?
So you use fear-mongering.
Would that be kind of like, have you ever played Manhattan Project? How you kind of like go in and you steal their powers?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, there's definitely. I would argue that there's not really take that in this game, in the sense of, to me, take that as I play a card and knock your scores down. Here you always have a warning of what's about to happen if you see it.
Okay.
So the worker placement in this is we all take turns placing our workers, and they don't resolve until everyone's placed. And the effect is you place a meeple on arrest. I know who you don't like. You can only arrest people that have accusations on them. The accusations, by the way, reduce the reputation for each accusation, so John can be arrested for 3 influence now instead of 5.
Okay,
but you must have an accusation to arrest.
Okay, so accusations and arrests are some sort of element in the game.
Yes, as in all good witch hunts.
Yeah.
So I know who you don't like, I know who you've accused, and you select the arrest spot. So I have a fairly strong hunch of what you're after. And there's ways that I can interfere with that by protecting or using exonerate. Mm-hmm. No, I might be wrong, because we also have secret grievance information. There may be some people down here that you have a grievance against that I don't know you're going after. However, even if I counter, you see that I countered, and you may suspect that I am trying to interfere with what you're doing, and you may have an alternative to do that. So many of the reviewers have talked about this game as being an onion, that there's layers and layers each time you play it that to start to appear that you didn't know you can do.
Let me ask you a question. Are we playing as... this is competitive.
Yes.
You are playing as what? I am playing as what?
So it's kind of a nebulous faction. And the game reason for that is we didn't want to have player elimination. So we originally started with you were a certain person. And because you were that person, we had to make it really difficult to arrest you. But eventually we had to make it so difficult to arrest you that you couldn't be arrested because we didn't want player elimination. Right. And then it became kind of ridiculous.
And it defeats the purpose.
So we take a step back, and you're sort of this family, essentially, but you're not any one particular person in that family or faction. Mm-hmm. The effect of that is also, the side effect of that, we did it for game mechanics reasons, but the side effect is you're not actually playing really nice people in this, and so you're also a step removed emotionally, and that seems to help too, because you're getting people arrested and you're throwing shade on them and that kind of thing.
So these people are coming out, and what triggers the end of the game?
So buried in the bottom 8 cards of this deck are 2 endgame triggers. So as soon as either the governor's wife or Increase Mather comes out, the game ends immediately. And that's important because if you know the game is going to end, you metagame and go for arrest, because arresting people gets you more points. So when I arrest someone, I get points for the property they have.
Okay.
But when I bring people into circle, I gain their abilities. I don't get as many points.
And what are some of the abilities?
So some of the ones we have out here are as straightforward as all of the afflicted girls will place accusations, because that's what they would do. Some of the abilities are reactive, like Tituba, which is after any arrest happens, she immediately places an accusation because she historically perpetuated it.
It's really a cool theme that you don't see a lot. I love it.
So all of the abilities are as closely related to them, the people, and historically accurate as we could be. I mean, there's not a lot of information on some of the folks. Right. Philip English was wealthy. He did get arrested, but he was able to spend his time in jail in Boston at night. And during the day, they could go shopping and wherever and come back. I may have studied this way too much.
No, that's great. So, that's like half the people I hear. That's like Epstein. You got to go out during the day.
Yes,
so.
Yeah, so that hasn't changed. John Alden, he went to New York City. Apparently the Boston-New York rivalry went back to then, because New York was more than happy to protect him until, I think the quote was, until the craziness was over, and then he came back. John Porter, if you have him in your circle, you're able to perform the bring someone into your circle action way ahead. The hammer abilities, when you select these space, you trigger anyone that has a hammer ability in your circle.
And the worker placement part is, on my turn, I simply place my person in an available spot?
Yes, and
Okay.
like most worker placements, you lock the other players out from choosing that spot. And then we resolve along this cobblestone path.
Very good. Very good. Well, this is very exciting, man. Thank you for showing me. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
I can't wait to show that to everyone on the channel. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, bye.